Do we want them vetting what's true and what's not true? Or are we more interested in them creating a system that shows transparently who's purchasing things so that the viewer can see what slant or how it's coming from? I like this step that they're talking about of verifying to make sure that American citizens and American businesses are the ones purchasing ads that we're going to be seeing, not only for elections, but anything where they're trying to be interfering in our democracy and in our faith in our government.
Chris, is that enough? Is that going to be effective, or is this something we just have to kind of live with?
Well, you know, it's not just the ads that were the problem. And yeah, the ads were definitely a problem, and I definitely support verifying the ads, just like we do with every other ad that's taken out in other mediums. But what the Russians did was they created thousands of fake identities on Facebook and Twitter and other social media platforms, which they then used to spread messages across the internet and mislead people to thinking that they were actually speaking with real Americans, spending over $1 million a month in this effort in 2016. So we talk about ads, and they even say that many of the ads were placed after the election, but the ads were just a small fraction of what they were actually doing. They were creating social accounts, and they were misleading the American people. And there's got to be some way for these social media outlets to verify where people are from.
Lance, you're the tech expert. You know, to Chris's point, it was very well orchestrated. It was very well done. Identity theft, you name it, including the ads and other means of targeting particular groups of people who they believed might be susceptible to fake news or certain stories. I mean, how on earth do social media companies combat this kind of attack?
Well, first of all social media companies should be run as well as this Russian operation. I am stunned at the way it was done. It was so well structured, so well vetted, so well tracked at every level. You know, what we need to understand here is that the Russians understood that these are tools, these are platforms, and they figured out the best possible way to use them to influence people. And I like what your other guest said there, that this is not just ads, because they literally created a series of Facebook groups that collected hundreds of thousands of members that touched on topics like the Black Lives Matter movement, religion, even geographic locations inside the United States. Now, those are not ads. Those are simply groups that people clustered around. But there's a big difference when someone who is for a cause creates a group and then an outside entity that is simply trying to sway opinion does it. It is, because of the way these systems are designed, it is very difficult for Facebook and YouTube to zero in on this kind of activity. Because it doesn't present itself as something outside the norm, because, you know, they're kind of mirroring what other people are doing it, but doing it in a much more aggressive and programmatic way.
Kevin, responding to that, you know, listen, the U.S. does this as well, right? We've been well documented what we've attempted in Cuba and elsewhere around the world, where we've tried to unseat dictators and give perhaps the more democratic candidate, if you like, a helping hand, and yet we're outraged that Russia was doing it. I mean, is this something that happens around the world anyway?
Well, for sure it happens, but I think, you know, we want to protect the integrity of our process and our elections, and really it does go, you know, what the president said in his tweet, I know that gets people riled up, but he's right. If the goal of Russians were not to elect one person over somebody else, it was to sow discord and distrust among the American people, and that's exactly what they've done. What we need to do is to wake up, to stop being mad at everybody in Washington on this issue, and start holding other people accountable. And some of that is these tech companies to say, hey, we are putting our trust in you. You've got to protect this process.
Go ahead, Chris.
More importantly,
Chris, go ahead.
More importantly, Ashley, is that we've got to hold the Russians accountable. The president was given sanctions by Congress with only 5 members of both the House and Senate voting against it to impact on Russia. He has not fully utilized those sanctions. In fact, he hasn't used them at all. And we need to start doing that. And that's where the outrage in this country is right now, is why did Russia just get away with this? And the president is doing nothing.
Well, Chris, what about the fact that it's been made that, you know, President Obama back in 2014 could have done something about this, but he took a softly approach?
Well, you know, if you read the indictment, the 2014, they were on reconnaissance missions, and it got going in 2016. President Obama did put sanctions in on Russia once they realized this was happening. And now the Congress is demanding that President Trump do the same, and he's not doing it. And we have to ask ourselves why that is.
Let's get back to Lance very quickly, who gave us a pretty sobering kind of summation of where we're at. I understand that Facebook is now going to send mail postcards to verify addresses. I couldn't believe that we're using the United States Postal Service to try and combat these pretty complicated and pretty far-reaching efforts by Russia. But nevertheless, I mean, will the social media companies come up with something, some sort of algorithm perhaps, that could thwart this?
Well, I think, okay, an algorithm is very helpful when you have something that you can identify, like a piece of music, and you can make a perfect match, or an image, you can make a perfect match. But when it comes to sentiment, it becomes extremely difficult to do that. But I will say this about Facebook, and I will say this about Mark Zuckerberg. They took a very long time to wake up to the fact that this was going on. Mark Zuckerberg spent months saying, nope, not happening, not us, we're not a part of this. And now he's probably spent the last year going, I'm so sorry. Obviously, our platform was used in this way, and that's what hurts Facebook so much, is that their platform was used to sow this discord. But I'd like to see someone send out postcards to the voting public so they know the difference between facts and fiction, because they do play a role in all of this. All of America's on Facebook. All of America's been basically reading stuff and looking for things that support their ideas and don't sway in any direction. So, there's a lot of blame to go around, and certainly technology plays a role.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there, but we will be coming back with you, gentlemen. We're talking about tech and then the role of guns in the wake of the Florida high school shooting. So, gentlemen, thank you so much.